Hey folks, my name's Tun and I lead AI at Lenses. I'm here in New York City, but I can't stop thinking about MCP. Now, MCP's got the potential to be such a transformative technology for every single business. What you're taking is the knowledge of the internet that's baked into an LLM, and you're combining that with context from your business. And that's powerful. And I think it's going to have huge implications for complex technologies like Apache Kafka, which, really has had a hard time with a lot of teams. Like, it's unarguably still a very popular technology. It's used by the majority of Fortune 500 companies, but I still consider it a 1% skill because it's got a steep learning curve. There are like many concepts to learn, like partitions, late arriving data, exactly once. Like, who knows about that? You've got to learn it all. And it's not just the concepts, it's the infrastructure. How do you manage large-scale Kafka clusters? So I think MCP will change these sort of technologies that have that complexity. I can think of 4 personas, like 4 roles in an organization that will benefit from using MCP and Lenses MCP. The first is a platform engineer. So platform engineers have to look after multi-Kafka estates, like usually really large ones. Second one is going to be data engineers who humbly have all these requests and get inundated with increasing demand for real-time data and surfacing that to business teams. The third are compliance teams, teams that have to secure your data and make sure it's well governed. And then the fourth are the the fourth are the business teams, the teams with product owners, with software engineers who have to ship applications for the business. So I'm going to go through 4 of these workflows with you and show you how you can succeed in those roles with Lenses MCP. But first, I'm going to have to find a coffee or an ice cream. Okay, I've had my coffee and I'm back at my desk. So I'll demonstrate several powerful prompting workflows designed for the 4 key personas I mentioned. To recap, first, it's the platform engineer responsible for monitoring data platform health. Second, the data engineer, tasked with finding specific, hard-to-locate data for business teams. Third, the compliance manager, who needs to classify data and configure security policies. And fourth, someone in the business team, such as a data analyst or software engineer who wants to build their own data pipelines. So let's start with the platform engineer. This scenario is a common one. You're preparing for a holiday and need to delegate your daily platform health checks to a teammate. I'll show you how to equip your teammate with a few simple prompts. These prompts combine the reasoning power of an LLM with the live Kafka context provided by the Lenses MCP. Here, I have Claude configured with the Lenses MCP Server. So let's run our first command. List the different environments or clusters that Lenses is connected to. To make this easier, I'm connecting Claude to Lenses Community Edition, which is connected to a single broker local Kafka cluster. And you can download it for free and try it out today. In a production scenario, you would connect Lenses to your multi-Kafka environment, like this one here. It has a number of Kafka API compatible environments, each of which I can drill down into or have a global view. Okay, to make it easier for the rest of this demo, let's use the Lenses Community Edition with this single Kafka cluster. Now it has a number of partitions, and rather than asking my teammate to understand everything about partitioning, let's give them a few prompts with Claude to understand their health. Now for my first search, we're going to ask Claude to use Context 7, which is a service that has indexed the entire Lenses documentation in an LLM-friendly format. And this is going to help guide Claude on the correct syntax and expectations around tools according to the documentation. Fantastic. Claude is confirming that there are no under-replicated partitions. I can now follow up with other prompts to verify other aspects of the platform health, perhaps the broker CPU or disk space, and so on. The key takeaway is this. Instead of spending days training my teammate on Kafka internals and our toolset, I've just given them a few effective prompts. This is a dramatically faster way to onboard a new team member. Let's move on to the second workflow. So here I'm a data engineer, and just finding data in Kafka can be tough because there's been little to no documentation, and it's not obvious which topics have good or relevant data. Now, I know from experience this often leads to duplicate data sets where different teams have processed and integrated the same data twice. I have a requirement to process and find sales order data, but just looking in Lenses, I really don't see anything related to sales or orders, even when I'm searching the metadata. It doesn't, however, mean that this data doesn't exist. It just hasn't been documented. Now, I could look inside the topics one by one to see if anything is related to sales orders, but that would take hours, if not days, and I'd really need to understand what sales order data actually looks like. And that in itself also might be a compliance risk. So let's use Claude instead and leverage its knowledge and reasoning. Where do I have sales orders? Now, as suspected, it hasn't found the data based on metadata, but it's identified the name of a topic that seems to be related to an SAP table that's known for sales orders, and it hasn't even had to peek at any messages in the topic. This has saved me hours of work. So let's take a look at one message inside the topic to confirm it is sales orders. And here I'm invoking the Lenses SQL snapshot engine just to fetch one message. Now this seems to be the data I want to work with, but I just have one follow-up question before I commit to using this data, and that is, are the events evenly distributed across the different partitions? Because this is going to impact how I build my consumer and how it scales. Now Claude is telling me that the data is actually poorly distributed, and it's giving me recommendations of what I should do before I commit to using this data in my application. Now on to the third workflow. The problem with this sales order topic being difficult to find and not documented or classified is a compliance risk for my business. And as a compliance manager, I should look into this. I want to describe and tag any topics that contain PII data. This is the sort of work that's a slog and can take weeks, if not months, if I have thousands of topics across dozens of clusters. So instead, I can ask Claude to do this work for me. In this case, I'm asking it to use the existing metadata, so the schema or anything that Lenses has added, as well as potentially sampling events from each topic that might help to describe what the data is. In just under a minute, it's done the work that might have taken several people days or even weeks and endless meetings. Now let's ask Claude to update the metadata description in the Lenses data catalog. Not only that, I'm going to ask it to create data masking rules for any fields it determines is PII or is sensitive. And whilst it's still running, we can return back to Lenses and see the metadata description updated and the data masking rule applied. Now for the last workflow, let's imagine I'm a business analyst and I want to see when VIP customers are placing those sales orders in real time. I want this data integrated into our analytics suite in S3. Now normally I'd have to ask a Kafka data engineer to do this, but for my request I could be waiting weeks. So let's see if I can do this myself. I need to join two streams together, and I'm not confident enough in SQL, and I don't really know the data very well. So I'm going to save time and ask Claude to build me a SQL snapshot query against the two topics. All that I know is that the email address is the common field between the two topics. Now here I'm making a point-in-time query, and here it is. Fantastic. Just to verify, let me just run the SQL in Lenses Studio real quick to double check. And yes, it definitely works. So that looks correct. Let's turn the SQL into a stream processing application using the Lenses SQL processor engine. Now it's going to write the results back to an output topic, which I'd like to sync to an S3 bucket called Sales Orders VIP. So let's see how it does. So first, it's creating the SQL processor, and then it's going to create the S3 connector. Now it seems to have been successful with the processor at least, so let's have a look in Lenses. Yes, we can see it there correctly. It just needs to be started. And now let's check the connector. Yes, that too has been created, although there's an error, which I know that's normal because my dev environment doesn't have access to the S3 bucket. And finally, let's just check the topology to verify the pipeline is complete. Yep, it all looks connected. Amazing. Now all that we need to do is start the processor, and I can do that manually, and then we see those events are being processed. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this demo and could see for yourself how Lenses MCP can be so transformative to so many who work with or want to work with streams. And let's work on this together. The Lenses MCP Server is an open source project on GitHub, so please give us a star to follow the project and contribute to the project by opening an issue or a new discussion. See you again soon. Peace out.